So welcome to Parashat Mishpatim Deep Dive, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome with us as our special guest today, Rav Yirmeyah, and I'm absolutely delighted because you've been so vehemently supporting of this project from the very beginning. Your encouragement and support and help whenever I got into trouble has been invaluable. And from the very beginning, you said to me this would be your favorite parasha. So I'm absolutely delighted that we finally got here, because it's full of mystery, this parasha. And I even having read the whole of the Alshech, I'm left with so many questions, and I'm so grateful for you to give some clarity on the questions still remaining.
I'll try.
So before we go into the part of the Mishpatim that I really want to focus on, which was, God appointing the angel, tell us a little bit about the first. You mentioned something to me about the deeper meaning of slavery and the soul.
It's an enormous subject, and maybe it will be the one for the interview of next year.
Right.
But
just give us
for
a
the year
little
after.
taste.
But we can give a taste of this. Is it says Ki tikne eved ivri. By the way, Mishpatim doesn't start with an introduction of saying Akash Baruch Hu told Moshe or anything like that. It actually goes directly in telling you Wele Mishpatim. And there is the Targum has an illusion about the fact that these are the type of dinim, but you see, it uses a term in Aramaic which is actually very close to the ultimate state in meditation that one talks about. And what is it about? It's about souls. What is God concerned with more than Shidduchim? There's a famous midrash. Right? It says that what is he occupied with? What is he occupied? He created the world, he did this, put everything in place. So what is he busy with? Yeah. And saying he's busy with the souls, right? So this is really the parasha that contains the secrets about that. And that's the very meaning of Lechov Shechinam, when it talks about the freeing of the slave. And it's not just that he will have some type of chofesh, that have some type of freedom, but it also free, like a free beer, like free meal. Yeah. So this is what we're talking about. It's ultimate freedom. This is what in the East one had called moksha in Sanskrit. The Torah has the perfect term that even moksha in Sanskrit doesn't have. Doesn't have as a meaning. Lechofshi hinam. And how do we know any of this? Well, because we've had an encounter, a Tanaik encounter, between Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Haya. And then it was extended toward an old man, a mysterious old man. And this old man at first comes with riddles, with impossible riddles, even I would say seemingly senseless riddles. Rabbi Yosef even complains to Rabbi Haya and says, this is rekanya, this is like emptiness. What are we bothered with any of this? And it turns out that this is actually a higher revelation. And such a higher revelation that for anyone, even Rabbi Yosef, you see, Rabbi Yosef is this extraordinary sage who told us, had Moshe and Eliyahu Hanavi Zachor Tov, had Moshe Rabbeinu and Eliyahu Hanavi Zachor Tov, had they not gone up, had they not ascended up, the Shekhinah would never have come down.
Wow.
This is very, very, very fascinating, and so this great sage, for him it was too intense. The revelation of the Sabbath, the revelation of the supernal Sabbath. The Tikkun HaZohar is filled with allusions of a certain Sabbath teaching. And if we didn't have the Ari, we would not know who is this anonymous old man that one is talking about.
What's his name, this anonymous man?
Rabbi Yeba Saba.
Yeba Saba, okay.
Rabbi Yeba Saba.
And what's his relevance to us?
Oh.
Or am I going on a diversion?
Yes, you're going on a diversion.
Okay.
Maybe for next year. But
maybe for next year, okay.
He's sailing on the supernal sea. The sense of who he is very complicated.
Okay,
but he's humble.
So a teaser for next year then.
He's a humble. There's you see, and that's what we learn in Parashat Yitro, by the way, and that sometimes we fail to realize is that God's real essence is prideful.
Is
Prideful.
prideful.
That's why, both in the way that our people experienced it in Shirat Hayam, and both the way that Miriam, and Neviah herself, re-expressed it back. She only took one sentence. And what is that sentence? Ashir al Hashem, ki ga'o ga'a.
Pride.
Imagine understanding that a revelation of God brings you to the point of saying, he's so prideful. At first, that's not the first thing that comes to us.
No.
Right? In fact, that's so much higher that no religion, no spiritual awareness in the world ever talks about God being prideful. And that's how we know that what we had in Parashat Yitro, so my master was saying very, very, that's the meaning also of this very pasuk, Hashem Malach Geut Lavesh, he enclosed himself with pride. This is not a simple subject, but you see, Rabbi Abba Saba has this understanding of just before that pride. He has this understanding, this connection with the humility, the thing that we can relate to. And one of the problems in our world, right? It's the Gemara that says that in many instances of saying, why is Ben David? Why is the son of David? Why does Mashiach has not come for now? Why? He says because of the gasut ruach, the bad character, the pride of our people. We have this extraordinary explanation in Sharo HaKodesh that says that pride among non-Jews is not a problem, and not even a problem for God. The problem is pride among our own people, among Am Israel.
Because it affects God's...
Because what it does is that it gives Elokim Acharim, the Kali, it gives it access to the Tziruf Elokim, to the 120 permutations of Shem Elokim. And as it gives us access, it actually is able to use our pride as Jews. And God, we can be careful.
Against us. It uses our pride against us.
Because it uses it as an elevator. What it normally can reach is quite limited down. But through our pride, it's able to reach higher.
Well, if I can humbly ask you, if we go straight into Parashat Mishpatim, our pasuk, we see lots of laws, lots of commandments between man and God. And then all of a sudden, towards the end of this, stuck in the middle of all the halachot, is this pasuk, Hineni, I'm sending before you an angel to take care of you and bring you to the special place that I've reserved for you.
I've prepared
for you. And it sounds so out of context. There's so many questions, but the first question is, why specifically there are we listening to this prediction about an angel being sent to us? I mean, if it was a premonition of what's going to happen later on in Kitisa, then tell us in Kitisa. Why are you telling us now in the middle of all these halachot?
Well, first, I wouldn't be able to answer this question without, the extraordinary guidance of my master, Alav Shalom. He was a man of very little words. For him, there was no trait which was more important than humility. You could be the richest man. You could be the most clever man. You could actually do the greatest knowledge. If you didn't have any humility, you were worth nothing in his eyes. And he was very, very strong about that.
Right.
And he's the one who gave us keys. But his way of giving keys was never just telling us like what I'm going to do now. For long, I wish that he would have told me what I'm going to tell you now. But after that, like I'm saying in hindsight, I would say that after his Petira, he departed this world 15 years ago. And after his departure, it was such a loss. I had a hard time putting back my feet on the ground or I felt too grounded. I don't know which one of them, but he expressed things in a way where he was giving clues, little clues like that. And so some of the things I'm going to say are actually those clues, only that we've developed them.
Right.
And I have to also say that there is nothing I say here for which I did not receive some type of inner permission.
Good.
And in the different holy places we have around here, we have greatest sages. By the way, we have the very editor, for those who really want to access that, we have the very editor of Sefer HaZohar. The editor of the Zohar is just near Tzfat, just down Nachal Mud. And I won't say more, but actually, who was he? Rabbi Abba. You have the greatest sages, the greatest, energies, awarenesses of the highest level around here. And my master was delighted to have us here. And I know it why, because he's the first reason I actually even arrived here in Tzfat. He sent me here in Tzfat, and I had an extraordinary encounter. Now, to the parasha you were mentioning, well, you see, experiences don't make realization. But our people had this shared experience of God with Moshe Rabbeinu at the end of Parashat Yitro.
Right.
And that's Aseret HaDibrot. And that was too intense for them. They even explicitly said, talk with us. You talk with God. Pen namut, lest we die. That's the level of intensity. So when we reach Parashat Mishpatim, we have to realize that actually this doesn't come out of the blue, that suddenly one would say, hey, you, the people, you, not the realized beings, not the self-realized being like Moshe Rabbeinu, but you, the people,
the normal people,
you actually don't have to deal directly with me. And so it's giving this master plan, and it's a Torah within a Torah. That's the way my master was looking at it. And that's the very reason why he takes the Zohar on Parashat Mishpatim as of such great importance. By the way, he's not the only one. If you take Kitvei Ari, if you look at the Ari, there's almost not one page of the Shmoneh She'arim that doesn't have a citation of the Sabbat Mishpatim. And so much that even Shar Orah Kodesh tells you that at the point Rabbi Chaim Vital wanted to go a step further in his existence, the Ari gave him on a petek, on a little, like a little piece of paper, he gave him a yichud to gain access to Rabbi Abba Saba. And we have the story that he did, and we have actually, he records a bit of his experience. So you see, this is really of the core of the teachings. So not only is a Torah within a Torah, but it actually has structure. So as you said, we have the beginning, which are really injunctions, which are some types of prerogatives, of some types of responsibilities, as you were explaining. But those responsibilities are followed by this seemingly strange or peculiar, let's say this way, pasuk, and not just pasuk, it's actually 4 psukim, right? Because it's actually psukim 20, 21, 22, and 23 of the chapter 23.
Yeah.
And it contains this idea of, I will send, הנה אנוכי שולח מלאך לפניך, לשמורך בדרך, ולהביאך אל המקום אשר הכינותי. By the way, ולהביאך, the בעלי המסוע tell us that there's no other usage of ולהביאך in the whole Torah.
Really? Yes. Interesting.
There are other terms, by the way, in all those sentences that are unique, but we're not going to, give all that now. Yeah. There are many things that are very interesting about first person of the singular, second person of the singular, then switch to the plural, right? Lifi shachem. Till now, everything was you, and then it's you plural. Yeah. How, what, Yeah. And actually, it's a structure. There's such a structure inside Parashat Mishpatim. So that's the second part we talk about. The third part here in Parashat Mishpatim are not actually do's or don'ts. They are not anymore those prerogatives. They're not anymore those responsibilities. They are actually experiences. They're actually telling us what will take place for us.
Predictions.
Not only protections, what will take place for us. What will take place for you, for your bread, for your health, for your wife, and even for your enemies. That is, it's actually giving some master plan, but which depends on that second part. And that second part is the sending of the Malach. Now, what is the fourth part? The fourth part is telling us, which contains this beautiful Nasev Nishma, as you're saying. And the point of my master, which is an actual, and I know that he would bemoan the fact that I say chidush, you know, because he had this point of saying there's no such thing in Torah as chidush.
Right.
That is, you don't come with something which was new; it was already there.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like a discovery. It's even deeper than a discovery. It's actually, well, in a way, in the original sense of discovery, that's what it is, because you actually uncover. You see, you uncover something which was made for you to see. You know? The Tsfat Mishpatim, by the way, has this beautiful mashal that maybe one year we'll look at, which talks about the Raita as this beautiful maiden. And she actually wants to give a sense of herself, but only to the one she actually loves and the one that loves her. And, you know, and so that's the type of relation my master had with Torah. So what is that fourth part? That fourth part consists of Naaseh Nishma. And so how can we understand this? Well, Naaseh is actually those very responsibilities that we will do according to what you told us to do. And what is this Nishma? Well, Shema Bekolo. Listen to his voice. Of whom? Of the Malach. That's what the Psukim say. And that's what is Naaseh Nishma. In fact, by the way, look in Parashat Mishpatim, what are the other usages of the root Shin Mem Ayin, and you will see that the only time when one is using it as an injunction to the people of telling, listen, it's the only time. So the Nishma is actually referring back to that. That's what Naaseh Nishma is all about. We will do according to the Mishpatim that are given, and we will listen to this malach that you're sending to us.
So there was no resistance to having a malach. It was at that stage.
Well, first let's put it this way. Because this is really a Torah within a Torah, because this is really a master plan, and because it's not even introduced by saying, you know, Hashem talked to Moshe, etc. There's no question of resistance.
Right.
And actually, by the end, we can say, indeed, that there was no resistance. There was actually full embracing of the master plan, and that's the reason. That's the wording of Naaseh Nishma.
Mm-hmm. So, to what extent? Because I always thought Moshe was the intermediary between the Jewish people and God, and all of a sudden, God is introducing this angel who's going to be the intermediary. To what extent is it a demotion of Moshe? And
well, that demotion only happens in Parashat Kitisa.
Yeah.
And there is all reasons to believe that actually there was no demotion at the point of Parashat Mishpatim. Now, it took us till the famous Rav Hirsch, the Rav Shimshon Hirsch, Tzaddik Livracha, a man who really, I can say, really loved Torah. Mm-hmm. He loved Torah. He loved a sense of the roots, the Hebrew roots, of each word and making sense. He even talks about gradients of roots. It's very, very interesting things. I love his commentary. In fact, I used to, when I was a community rabbi, I actually was teaching a lot from his commentary on the Torah. And one of the things that he says, which is, again, we can't really call it a chidush, but it's like his own special relation with Oraita. He got this certain, realization that actually Moshe Rabbeinu must have been the first candidate for that malach which is being sent.
So when Hashem is saying, I'm going to send you an angel, he's talking about Moshe?
Yes, because that's the master plan. But because it's a master plan, it should not contain only the first instance. It should contain an allusion to all the instances and the matter. And the whole matter without any temporality. It should not be about just now. It should be any other time. So of course it contains Moshe Rabbeinu. And in fact, in Parashat Kitisa, of course it's not a parasha now, but Parashat Kitisa, when it contains this terrible Chet HaEgel, what caused it? At least how did we excuse it in a way? Well, we came here and sang Moshe Ha'ish. That's a very interesting term. Moshe Ha'ish, which is, by the way, used again in the Torah much later on when we talk about the humility of Moshe. In fact, the Rav Hirsch was very encouraged by a pasuk. I think it's pasuk 16 of Bamidbar 23, but I mean, don't cite me on that. But actually, we're being recorded, so it's kind of whatever. So we can verify after that. Maybe I was wrong, but I mean, from what I remember, there's a pasuk in the Torah that actually says that Moshe Rabbeinu was sent almost like a malach, like a shalach, Shakadosh Baruch Hu shalach oto, which really resonates with the idea of him being the malach.
And also the fact that he was half human, half not. Who can stand up in the mountain for 40 days and, be face to face with God, so to speak, and survive it? It's...
And that's the very end of Parashat Mishpatim, by the way. It has this extraordinary declaration at the very last pasuk of Parashat Mishpatim, which talks about Moshe Rabbeinu and clothed in the cloud. And clothed in the cloud and going up of the cloud. It's, and by the way, we're talking about the Rabbi Abba Saba, somebody Mishpatim and the Zohar. He reveals an element about that. And Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Chia bow down to him and cry. And they say, had we only heard that from you, it was worth it.
Wow. So we have Moshe, so to speak, the first angel to guide.
The first malach, the first shaliach.
And he didn't even make it to bring them to the promised land.
Yes, well, something happened in between, as we know, Chet HaEgel and many other things that it's not this parasha.
Yeah. But then another angel appears on his death, right?
So that's a very interesting thing that we learn from it's Midrash and Chuma. Of course, we have different commentators that have used Midrash and Chuma. Basically, Midrash and Chuma, the original source, at least the way I know it. And Midrash and Chuma is telling us that when Yoshua bin Nun encountered the Malach, it's at the point of the conquering of Yericho, that at that point, this Malach told Yoshua bin Nun, the Nun Yoshua, told him, look, I'm actually the Malach. Originally, that was, the one sent, that was supposed to be sent, at the point
because Moshe had to argue against God not to send him.
Yes, and what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu answer by the end? He told him, Panai yelechu, my face will go. Yet, even on that, Moshe Rabbeinu argues and kind of wants to make sure that he's going to get what he wanted, and he says, but if they don't go, then don't take us out of here. But there's a fundamental difference between what HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells them at that point and what was the original master plan, Parashat Mishpatim. And what's the difference? Parashat Mishpatim, it says, Lishmorecha baderech. The Malach is here in order to keep you on the way. Parashat Kitisa, HaKadosh Baruch Hu explains, he says, Pen achalecha baderech, lest I destroy you. And that's a very, 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 very fundamental difference.
So what I'm confused about is that you're saying that if we had a direct relationship with God, there would be a serious risk that if we went wayward, he would have to destroy us because of din,
But that's what the Torah says.
But we always look at God as being a God of rachamim, and this angel that's going to take care of us, we're told that, listen to him, don't rebel against him, because he's not going to let you off. He hasn't got the right to give you rachamim like I would.
Well, that's an understanding. I understand that you take the pasuk as meaning that, but actually the pasuk said, Ki lo yisa lefi shachem. And what does it mean? Yisa is the root nun sin aleph. It's not to forgive. It's to carry, it's to take care. He's not going to take care of your sins. And that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying. In other words, he's saying, I, on the other hand, would take care of your sins. But the Malach will not take care. He's not here for that. So in other words, let's say things clearly. This is an extra space which is granted by this Malach in being between Bnei Israel and HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Like a buffer zone.
It's like a buffer zone. It's an extra space which actually protects us as we sin.
So that if we sin, there's a time delay we can do teshuvah before Hashem's...
I wouldn't define it like that, but it can be a consequence of it. And that's what the meaning of Kilo Isa Shachem. That he will not carry your sins. He's not here for that. So, but on the other hand, Akash Baruch Hu just doesn't say it once only, twice, using each time the same, the same term of to destroy it. Pen achalecha baderech, lest I destroy you on the way. I mean, you see the parallel of statements. Lishmolecha baderech, pen achalecha baderech, to keep you on the way, lest I destroy you on the way. It's two different programs. So of course we may want to entertain, to maintain some type of delusion that we are in direct relation with God, just like it was at the point of Yetziat Mitzrayim. See, that was the point that the Abarbanel had. The Abarbanel said, what's unnatural? What's so extraordinary about what happened at the point of Yetziat Mitzrayim? He said, what's unnatural is the depth of God's involvement. That's what's unnatural. That's what we even celebrate on Leila Seder. Why do we say Man Ishana Laila? Why? What do we say about it? Because that's the point of Magid, right? Magid explains we actually recount, narrate back, right, to ourselves what took place. And what do we say? Him and not a malach. Him and not a saraf. Are we supposed now to take it for granted that would be always the case? How could it be that on one hand we're celebrating something and saying that was what's so exceptional about Yetziat Mitzrayim? It was him and not a malach.
Right. And the Alshech says that it was him and not a malach who actually saved us at Yam Suf.
Yes.
And so, am I right in saying that this unusual direct connection with God started at Yetziat Mitzrayim?
Yes.
And continued till Matan Torah?
It continued till, you can say it continued till the death of Moshe. That's why the deal, in a way, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has with Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe Avdo. And what's the deal? The deal is, look, you've argumented your point well enough. You have actually defended this whole thing well enough. I'm crediting it to you, but it's an exception. As long as you're here in this lower reality, I'm granting you my presence. Mm-hmm. And so, that's how it leads to things like, Wayaminu Bashem with Moshe Avdo, because there is such a relation between Moshe Rabbeinu and HaKadosh Baruch Hu that, the two for our people were interconnected. Once he's not here, that's the beginning of Sefer Yehoshua.
Right.
And it takes till Yericho for one to realize actually that's where things are standing.
It's fascinating because we're always taught to look for the good in everything. And the biggest sin we did as a nation, so to speak, was, apart from the Chet HaEgel, was the sin of the spies, because as a result of that, we ended up being 40 years in the desert. And yet, from what you're saying, the sugar pill, as a consequence of that, is we've got another 40 years of this special direct relationship with God through Moshe that we wouldn't otherwise have had.
Yeah,
is that correct?
It's all thanks to Moshe. It's all thanks to Moshe. It's not a Moshe Rabbeinu is not a simple story. He's beyond any story, beyond any history of man.
And this comment that God says, you have to listen to him because my name is within him.
About the Malach.
Yeah, about
Yes.
the Malach. Can you explain that?
It's a mashal in itself. Actually, I would say that it should be the subject of a very deep contemplation. Mm-hmm. Literally, it says, Ki shemi bekirbo, because my name is in his midst. Mm-hmm. How did our sages understand that? Well, we see in Maseret Sanhedrin that our sages didn't exactly take it literally. They said, Ki shemo keshem rabo, because his name of the Malach is like the name of his master. The Talmidim of Rashi they were so proud of this understanding that they actually put it inside the commentary of Rashi at the point of Ki shemi bekirbo, of saying, hey, if you take Malach Matat, whom we never pronounce, by the way, the name of angels that have not been pronounced by our sages, in particular by, for example, David HaMelech. And so Matat is not a name that you would pronounce, right? And so you will never give that name to a child, or you will also, never pronounce it fully. So we would take like maximum, we give ourselves this little, permission to actually pronounce the first three letters. Some actually don't even do that. My master was even making allusions, almost never pronouncing, not even Matat. But if you take the gematria of Mem, Tet, Tet, Resh, Wav, Nun, you actually have 314, which is just like Shin Dalet Yud. Akash Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu, I was not known to your fathers as Shem Hawaya Baruch Hu, as Yud Ke Wav. I was not known like that. I was known to your fathers as Kel Shin Dalet Yud, as Kel Shaddai. There's a beautiful explanation, by the way, about Kel Shaddai, but we're not going to go into that now. Still, the matter is this. So how can it be that on one hand we talk about Kel Shaddai, on the other hand we talk about this Malach who has a gematria of 314? My master was saying because Kel Shaddai, one of the meanings of it is to say he is the God of that angel. And so in other words, he's saying he is the real power behind this angel. You see, he's called by our sages Malach Matat, or he's called Sara Olam, which is quite a big term, Prince of the world, or he's called Ha'eved Ne'eman, the faithful servant. Because Malach Matat is not here to actually draw the attention to him. If it was only for his own sake and only depending on him, we would never have that pasuk. He has nothing to do with that. It's because it's Akash Baruch Hu who told us inside this master plan, you should actually listen to his voice. But it's, I call it a LED. In electronics, a LED actually has the current only going in one direction. And that's actually the unidirectional meditation. Meditation, in its essence, you're not here to express anything. You're here to receive. You're here to be influenced, to be impressed. And that's what is actually we are told to do. That's the Shema Bekolo. That's the Shamua Tishma. That's the matter, And we could go on, for a long time. This,
but tell me, what is the practical difference for us today? We're now in the realms where that special relationship with God expired when Moshe died. You're saying, and we're having, and we don't have an option in this. There's no free will. Do we choose a direct relationship with God or through?
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yes.
So, what is the implication to us today in our tefillot, in our hopes, in our dreams, in our attempts to have a connection with God, that we have this malach intermediary? What's the...
First, I would tell you that you've engaged with Tefillat HaDerech, for example. Tefillat HaDerech makes extraordinary usage of it. We're not going to detail it now, but anyone who actually wants to learn Tefillat HaDerech, I'll be glad to give some glimpses of it, at least give it some directions, some guidelines. Tefillat HaDerech uses those mechanisms, and you can't have Tefillat HaDerech without those mechanisms. That's an example. Another example that you have is actual meditation. The only actual teaching of meditation left by the Ari involves meditating on the name of Malach Matat. And he even gives guidelines that are really pure meditation, not something that we extrapolate as being meditation. I've known only when I arrived here in Tsfat, I've realized that there was such a book as Jewish Meditation by the Rav Aryeh Kaplan, and he's done a beautiful job. But it's however a pity that he didn't know about that. He didn't know that the Ari had that teaching. And one of the reasons he didn't know is that Rabbi Shmuel Vital, the son of Rabbi Chaim Vital, wasn't too much in a hurry, to say the least, to actually give out that teaching. So he didn't really give it out. It only appeared later on when Shara Yehudim was published in Frankfurt many, many years later. And there was a little allusion, but it was actually in an obfuscated form. And it's only in those recent years, as we have access to the Ktaviad of Rabbi Chaim Vital that we see the centrality of this practice, which was an actual meditation telling you have to be alone, you have to be silent. See, the tradition of meditation in the Torah, by the way, comes from Megillat Echa. You know, it's Pirkei Avot that uses this pasuk in Megillat Echa. When it says, how do you know that the person alone, the Shekhinah, is here with him? How do you know? It says, because it's written in Megillat Echa, Yashav Badad V'Yidom Ki Natal Alahu. And it understands it as being, he is sitting. So it tells you, first you have to be sitting. In other words, there's no meditation standing. First you have to be sitting. Second, you have to be alone, Badad. That's what really bodhidut is, to be alone. Third, Yidom, silent. You don't go yelling, you don't go asking.
No mantras.
No. You're, no, this is not a matter. This is another matter. Mantras is another matter. You don't go with saying anything. And you actually close your eyes. And you do that a whole hour.
We did that with Eben Israel when I first came to Tzfat. It was quite awesome.
And so the Ari gives you that, and he gives you actual guidelines of that are all related to the Shem of Malach Matat.
But that seems so strange that we would meditate on the name of the Shem of Malach Matat. It seems so counterintuitive.
Here's the matter. You are listening to this expression of God in this world, which is actually much more accessible, much more closer to you. You're not trying to engage with it in a sense of talking to it. You in no way are trying to pray to it or anything like that. No, God forbid.
God says himself, don't treat him as a God.
Yeah. Alta merbo, which actually has two meanings. On one hand, is don't rebel against him. On the other hand, our sages tell us that's Maseret Sanhedrin. It tells us what does it mean alta merbo. It actually do not cause a replacement through him.
Right.
Make sure that he is not the cause of a replacement. And what is the master replacement? Obviously, replacing God, God forbid.
Right.
So obviously, we're not saying that. We're in no way advocating anything that comes close to that.
But it's just closer to us than God.
Yes. And so in us listening. But by the end, who will talk? Who will talk?
God.
That's why he says, Vasita. No? It says it has this beautiful, extraordinary pasuk, which gives you, the essence of it. It says, Ishamer Mipanav. Ishamer Mipanav is like almost beware of his face, but it's being preserving. It's actually being respectful of his countenance, because it's something that one can actually experience. And who says that? HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the master plan, which is called Mishpatim, the Mishpatim. Yishamer mipanav ushma bekolo, and listen to his voice. Ve'asita kol asher edaber, and you will do all that I say.
All that I say, not what he says.
He says what I say. Because see, by the end, your relationship will not be with the Malach. The end result of that is a relationship with God. And that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. In fact, the very Psuke de Zimra start with 18 Psukim that our sages says, in Maseret Chulin, if I'm not mistaken, say, what are those Psukim? Why do we have 18 Psukim after Baruch Shamar?
Yeah.
And all those, all those stuff.
The Hallelujahs.
No, the Yeshem Mevorach, all those that thought Atzat Hashem Leolam Ta'amod, all those psukim, that talk about the thoughts in the heart of man that are many. Atzat Hashem Hitakum, and the counsel of God. That's the one that actually will be accomplished, will be standing. All those 18 psukim, which, by the way, are the very source for having 18 brachot in the Amidah, and reflect back also on having 18 brachot at Birkat HaShachar, which actually are behind the fact that Malach Matat is made of two tet and tet, makes the 18. It's this chayut, it's this life within. It's in a way what one entertains even in pranayama, that is in breathing techniques, one actually wants to engage with that. That's why he's there accessible about that. But you see, the matter is this. Even a Pesuke de Zimra are made of the very praise that Malach Matat has towards God. That is, those psukim are not actually our praise, it's His praise, but we accompany His praise. And it's because we can accompany His praise that our praise has any value. My master had this beautiful declaration. He was saying, we had Shirat Hayam. It was an extraordinary revelation, revelation at the point of Kriyat Yam Suf. He says, but are we able to actually express back that praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, apart from reading, of course, and even chanting Shirat Hayam? But are we able to? The straight answer is no. That's why our sages told us, even the maidservant that what she experienced there, Adonenu Hanavi Yecheskel did not experience it. And so how can we actually come any close to that? By accompanying the praise that Malach Matat has of God. That's the matter. In fact, you're asking what difference will it make? Well, I'm going to tell you, if you didn't have that, there's allusions even in the Gemara that if you did not have Malach Matat in the middle, if you didn't have this shlichut, because it's a shlichut, right? Because it's a shlichut from HaKadosh Baruch Hu of this malach. If that shlichut did not exist, we can even doubt that there would be any meaning to bracha rishona. When we eat, you say bracha rishona, and then you say bracha harona.
Right.
Your bracha harona is quite clear about its purpose, but the bracha rishona. And why is it clear about its purpose? Because it says, V'achalta v'savata uverachta et Hashem Elokecha. So the fact of being satisfied and blessing, and of course we interpret it as being Birkat Hamazon, which is the greater realm of brachot. But the bracha rishona, what's its purpose? Well, the matter is this: you have to bring it for the bread to be, and that's Parashat Mishpatim. If you look in the Talmud Bavli, in Masechet Brachot, our sages say, how do we know that there is a bracha rishona? Because it's written in Parashat Mishpatim, in saying that it's just the psukim, just two psukim after what we talk about. The part where, as we said, is about what will take place for you, not about your responsibilities. What will take place for you if you actually listen to all this, if you actually let this malach, this emissary of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, take his place and do what he has to do. And what will happen? He will bless your bread. And the sage,
malach?
No, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bless your bread. And he says, what does it mean you'll bless your bread? He says, first, instead of reading like that, read it as you will bless on the bread. In the sense of, you will say this bracha rishona. And that's the only justification that the sages found. In other words, the source of it is Parashat Mishpatim. Because of what takes place with this malach. Same thing about healing. Same thing about healing. Originally, Parashat Yitro told you, all the macha that I put on Mitzrayim. But that's another reality, as the reality before Mishpatim, where we were coming out of Egypt, where we were related to Egypt. Everything, this thing was still very much inside us, inside our DNA, of our experience. He says, I will not put on you. Yeah. But that's fine. It ended there. But it says, Ki ani Hashem rofecha. The Gemara has this beautiful interrogation saying, but if in the first place he doesn't put on you this machala, why do you need his refuah? What does this matter? And that is the source of this Mishnah, where Rabbi Akiva says that there's an isur mochlat, there's a clear prohibition of taking someone who has a wound and saying on it, you would think, wow, this sounds almost pious, a nice thing, a nice practice, right? What is it? You take a pasuk from the Torah, you actually declare it on a wound, it sounds nice. But he says, why is it not nice? Because actually there is a wound. And so what is this matter of saying, I will not put on you? Obviously it was on you. Obviously you have this wound. So you need the second part, Ki ani Hashem rofecha, but the first part, you didn't benefit from. La Parashat Mishpatim simplifies the whole problem. It doesn't talk about Ki ani Hashem rofecha. It says, He will bless your bread and remove illness from above you.
That's right. I was wondering what that sentence was doing.
And actually, in a way, you could say it's a natural law. That's what Hippocrates was saying with the famous, may thy food be thy medicine. But it's beyond a natural law. There are many things in Mishpatim that you could think that it's a natural law, like eye for eye. It was the code of Hammurabi, that contained this idea really long time back. Of course, can anyone say that really the code of Hammurabi was before the giving of Torah? Those timing is very difficult. And it's not really here to debate about who came first. But the matter is this, it's not just a natural Torah. These Mishpatim are not just natural Torah, because it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bless your bread and He will remove from you.
Amen. Amen.
So in other words, there is this role, this extraordinary role of this malach, but it's only in order to accomplish what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to do in this world.
Mm-hmm.
You see, it's about this deep relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and yet without exaggerating the involvement. That's what Abarbanel said. You know, we all agree that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we call in philosophy immanence, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, this idea comes actually from Parashat Kitzah, right? How did the sages explain that matter in the Midrash? They said that it's written, Hine makom iti. Here there is a place with me. The sages, that's the expression. In fact, if you have one pasuk that contains the idea of the immanence of God, of basically God's omnipresence, it is only those three words, Hine makom iti. But pay attention, they resonate beautifully with not only, you know, but the fact that the beginning of Parashat Mishpatim already contained this general statement of saying, Ina leyado, Wesamti lecha makom, which, by the way, Diari explains that that's the sod of Elul. Elul is this realization that though you may have sinned, and there's no such thing as a tzadik that doesn't sin. You know, that's what we learn from Shlomo Godsi. And so what happens? Well, you see, when a tzaddik comes to sin, that matter was placed in his hand by God. And Elul is about that realization. That's what Diari says. Elul is about realizing, before Yom Adin, you have to realize that actually everything that came to be at the level of your transgressions, that was real Ashgacha. That was actual Ashgacha. That was actually HaKadosh Baruch Hu placing that sin in your hand. Wesamti lecha makom. But he put for you. See, it's interesting because again there is this first person of singular, you know, third person of singular, you know, kimo hine anochi sholeach ma'al lifanecha, he veines, you know, and so here is vesamti lecha makom. And so he puts for you this refuge. And this refuge is this space which is prepared for us. This is, you know, people talk about meditative space, space out of meditation. Well, the first pasuk that told you that is exactly the pasukim we're talking about. And that's the matter. So we talk a lot about God's immanence, but we forget that the Midrash itself never left it there. Hu mekomo shel olam. But this world is not his place. And what is that? That transcendence. There's immanence and transcendence. And you can't forget one, you know, or forget the other. The two go hand in hand. You know, that's what people have called panentheism, of knowing, of not to make of the creation God, to know, to recognize God everywhere, but actually to realize that he does transcend us. He's not your body. He's not just there so much available for you to the point that he's actually your neighbor. He transcends you. And that's what actually Parashat Mishpatim comes to remind to us, to remind us of. So tell us, though there was this exception, and this exception is really best expressed in Parashat Kitisa, but in the master plan, in the greater plan, this isn't the way it works. That's why this pasuk exists.
Well, sadly, we've come to the end of our podcast, and I could go on for many hours to come. But if you were to give us one takeaway from Parashat Mishpatim, what would it be?
You see, we have 614 mitzvot. And Diari in Shar Gilgulim never mentions them as mitzvot. He mentions them as being nitzotzot, sparks. They're like fundamental matter, fundamental energies, if you call it that. And we often do not realize how to engage with them. So we can or engage with them in a more neurotic way, that is one told you, and particularly what happens with a lot of Bali Teshuvah, which was at the beginning like with a full of like this zealous attitude of like. But is that the matter? And does pnimiut involve more chumrot, the more stringencies? And though it might seem strange I'd say that in relation to Parashat Mishpatim, but that's where for me it resonates the most because of the Shabbat Mishpatim, is that the Torah is not about having this very strict, terribly, I would say, imposing on oneself things that are of a great difficulty. It's not about that. It's about actually living it, engaging with it in a way where it actually brings you life. And that's what I think is about those parts, you see, where at the beginning it's about responsibilities, it's about saying you do like this, do like that, and things that, it contains the Shmirat Shabbat, it contains the fact of the Chagim, it contains all of that. And yet at the same time, it tells you, look, and if you accept this influence on you, this influence on you, which is this Malach HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent, then all those wonderful things will take place for you, for your bread, for your health, for your wife, and even for your enemies. You see, when you ask me the question about what would it be if it was actually directly, if that Malach did not exist, what would it be? I would tell you it's simple. Then you would not have nor Oyev, no Tsar, no Tzorer. You would have none of this. Why is it that you would be in direct connection with God and there's such a thing as an Oyev? Don't you know the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim? Who took care of it? Did you take care of it? HaKadosh Baruch Hu took care of it. No. It says, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu fought the war for us.
Right.
But here, it's a different, it's a different reality. We live that. But now we come to the point after that where we're after this, we're after this extraordinary revelation, and it continues till today. And obviously the goal is to grow closer to God. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a plan for that. And that plan does not involve the delusion of thinking that you already are in contact with God. See, as Jews, we have this potentiality. We have this potential of accessing Shem Havaya Baruch Hu. Does it mean that it's directly accessible to any of us, like a birthright, a spiritual birthright? The point of my master was saying no. He was saying when you're born with actually the same elements of access of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that first element of access is the level of Shemot Elokim. Our sages told us Moshe Rabbeinu was born with mochin de katnut shlemim. People talk a lot about mochin de katnut, but they don't realize that Moshe Rabbeinu was born with mochin de katnut shlemim, and that's why he could deal with Pharaoh. That's why he could deal with all this. And we're getting, ahead of ourselves because there's so many things we could say on this.
Amen. Well, thank you so much for your time and your clarity and sharing the inner wisdom that you received from your master in a way that's more easily palatable for us to hear. And I just send you blessings that you should be successful and matzliach in everything you do, and that you should teach again. We miss your teachings, and we should have the opportunity to share with the amazing wisdom that you've managed to accumulate over the years.
I am a seeker, and I will stay a seeker. And I just encourage everyone to stay as such.
Amen. Thank you, and thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and we'll see you next week.